LGBTQ plus women experience a lot of discrimination at work. If we're open about our identity, we might be shut out of jobs or opportunities due to prejudice. We absolutely need systemic change to address this kind of blatant discrimination. But for many of us, bias also shows up in more insidious ways, including our day-to-day interactions at work.
My lived experience is one in which many people don't assume that I'm a lesbian, even though I am. I certainly, in the earliest part of my career, did overhear disparaging remarks or, I heard so-and-so's transgender, I heard so-and-so's a lesbian.
At my workplace, when I mentioned that I'm bisexual, people seem to pretend like I said nothing. Just ignore it. They're not just othering me, but they're sort of distancing themselves from me in a way that comes across a little bit as a microaggression.
These are examples of microaggressions, comments and actions that reflect sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and other biases. Microaggressions take an enormous toll. They undermine our confidence and make work more stressful.
I've definitely had a lot of people misgender me at work, and it's always interesting, sometimes people will notice that they've done it and then apologize and send me a bunch of messages, and then I have to hop right into my next meeting.
The burden should not be on LGBTQ plus women to fix these problems. It's on leaders and companies to call out bias and create a better culture. And our colleagues need to do more to show up as allies, too. But right now, microaggressions are an unfortunate reality. So, when you experience one, what can you do? First of all, know that it is not your responsibility to confront anyone. You should never feel like you need to speak up if doing so puts you at risk. For example, if you're in a situation where being outed at work could hurt your career or even lead to getting fired. Even if you're in a safer position, speaking up may just feel uncomfortable or exhausting. It's more than okay to just focus on taking care of yourself. Connect with other LGBTQ plus women for validation and support. This is especially important since we face so much bias and we're so often on the front lines of the fight for inclusion.
There's absolutely strength in numbers in connecting with other women who share one's LGBTQ plus identity.
If you do want to speak up, research shows that doing so can help you feel more empowered and in control. It can also change other people's behavior. If the person who committed the microaggression doesn't realize they're causing harm or doesn't think they'll face consequences, calling attention to it could get them to act differently in the future.
I had a ponytail for probably 20 years and decided to cut my hair short exactly as it is now. Being misgendered, that would actually become something that I encountered quite a bit. And, having this sort of question of, should I correct this person? I'm only going to have one interaction, or am I going to have an extended interaction and I want to do that?
There are three main strategies you can use to speak up. One option is to simply state the facts. Researchers have found that this is the best way to make people aware their behavior was wrong without triggering a defensive response. If someone misgenders you or assumes your partner is a man when you're actually partnered with a woman, correct them in a straightforward tone. Another way to respond is to ask someone to explain their thinking. We know from research that this is a good way to get people to re-examine their assumptions.
I once had a coworker ask me after finding out that I was same-gender loving, how in the world did I have children? And I was amused and stunned by that he thought that it was okay to ask me this kind of question. My response was, for women who've been married heterosexually, how do a lot of them have children? He also had questions about how come it was that a woman who had once been married to a man, why was it or how was it that I now dated women? And so I just gave him grace and I responded honestly and tried to help him understand that people evolve.
You might be surprised by the power of the simple question, what makes you say that? You can use this question if someone makes assumptions about your personal life, implies that your identity is a choice or a phase, and in lots of other situations. If you sense the person acted without thinking and genuinely wants to treat you with respect, you could also tell them directly how their actions were harmful. It's often easiest to do this by following up privately. Following up later gives you a chance to prepare, and talking in private makes it more likely they'll really listen, rather than shutting down because they feel put on the spot. Describe exactly what they did and how they affected you.
Sometimes that can take the form of pulling the individual aside and saying, I noticed that when we were each giving our pronouns, you seemed to roll your eyes and said pass. Are you aware that there's actually an impact that your actions are having on other people?
No matter how you respond, there is a risk you'll get pushback. You can't eliminate this risk entirely, but research shows you can reduce it by speaking confidently and deliberately. This is easier to do if you practice your response in advance. Microaggressions can be really traumatic, and it's totally normal to get emotional when you talk about them. But if you've practiced, you'll still be able to get your key points across. Finally, remember that you shouldn't have to deal with microaggressions on your own. If your manager is supportive, talk to them about what's happening. If you don't feel like your manager will be helpful, think about whether there's someone else you can talk to. Maybe there's a colleague who's been outspoken about equity at work, or another leader or manager who you trust. Having an advocate can make a big difference, and you deserve to work with people who will speak up when you're not being treated with respect.